welcome to day 4 of my makeup therapy. I have already done my base. I used the Clinique Acne Solutions liquid foundation today, and I forgot how much I really liked this. My shade is Alabaster. And this is the only foundation I've ever had shade matched to me. Ulta had a special for Platinum members where you could go in and get shade matched and get a free bottle of any of the Clinique foundations. I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago, and I really love that foundation. So I've already done my foundation, and today is all mattes. So a completely matte look, which means no shiny, fun, dewy highlighter, no dewy foundation. So I've already primed and set my eyes. I'm going to do a yellow and peach look. For the peach, I'm going to be using the ColourPop and Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette, and this color is Sweet Dreams. And then I'll be putting Stardust in, I think that's the way that the names of the shadows are on the back of the palette, and the way that it's done is weird. So this, I think this is Magical. And this is Spark. There, yeah. Anyway, the Kathleen Lights and ColourPop Dream Street. This was my first ColourPop palette, and I bought it when I was in Seattle in June. I went into an Ulta and they had ColourPop, and I got really excited and had to have it. I'm just using the Air Blush Blender F63 to go into the crease. So I went back to the therapist today, and I really am so happy that I am doing this. I'm going to talk a little bit about what got me to where I am right now in terms of deciding to actually take a leave from work, because just having issues with anxiety and depression, that's something that I've had forever. So that alone isn't enough to make me do that. I'm going to use the Japanesque 724 just for something a little bit fluffier. So I had a situation a year ago, right after I found out that my dad was dying and had started talking to him and building a relationship. There was a coworker who I was pretty close with, and we had a situation at work where, regardless of what happened, I definitely had a complete meltdown, and it was something that affected my career and sort of halted me for the last year. And at that point, I really should have taken time for myself. I knew that I wasn't okay. I knew that I wasn't dealing well with life. I knew that day specifically that I was not doing well. I had actually told one of my other coworkers that I felt like I shouldn't be at work, and like I was ready to have a total meltdown. And so this is the Ulta crease brush that I'm going to go in with the pink. So when I did have a meltdown, and the actual incident was basically just a disagreement about how something should be handled, and it was a disagreement over policy, and it isn't anything that I can really, it wouldn't make sense even if I tried to explain it without really knowing what my job is. And so it was a situation where I didn't handle it the way that I would normally handle it. I got really upset and very heated, and while it was something that I was passionate about, I literally at the end of the whole conversation knew that it was bad enough that I went out to my car and sat in my car and was crying. And so when that eventually led to a situation where it was affecting my career, instead of doing things that involved self-care, I decided that I was going to just kind of bottle everything up and focus on my relationship with my dad, and that would be what I would focus on all the time, and that I would just figure things out at work, because taking time off wasn't something that I thought was responsible. Even though I knew that there was an option for paid time off, it just is something that even now while I'm doing it feels like I'm letting people down. So it's a really difficult decision to make. I'm just going to use the large eyeshadow brush from Sonia Kashuk and go into the yellow. For the yellow, I'm using the Lime Crime Venus 2 palette. It has mustard. This nice mustard color is actually called mustard, which I think is kind of nice. The weird names of colors sometimes annoys me. So I was really hesitant to take time off, and it was something that I didn't know for sure if I was going to do it. And after my grandma died, I wasn't handling things well, because it's not just that I'm losing a grandmother. It's not just that my grandmother died. It's that it's bringing up everything from my mom's death. It makes the fact that my dad is dying much more real. And so it's just dealing with all of those emotions and dealing with trying to also be at work and be okay for everybody. And my job involves talking to angry customers a lot, which means that I'm at work being yelled at, and that takes a toll in and of itself. And I've been doing that job for years. I'm going to go back in with the Japanesque 724, and I'm going to use Lemonade from the Suva Beauty Block Party palette. So when I told my boss that I was going to see my doctor and that I might be going on a leave, I don't think that he thought I would really do it, because it was something that he knew I didn't do when I had needed it before. And he also has been my boss long enough that I think that he knows that making a decision like that is not something that is easy for me. And the day that I went to see my doctor, I went into her office, and before I even made it to her office, I was completely breaking down. And then I was sitting in her office by myself, waiting for her to come in, and I couldn't compose myself. And part of that was the anxiety of knowing that I wasn't okay and having to say it out loud to somebody who has only ever really seen me be pretty together. She's been my doctor for a long time, and she's seen me go through a lot of medical issues, and I've just always been able to pull myself together and deal with it. So I'm going to go back into the Dream Street palette and put some more peach in this. So for me, it also feels kind of like I'm failing at life when I can't even have a real conversation with somebody. And there are people going through things that are so much worse than anything that I'm going through. I've gone through things that are so much worse than anything that I'm going through. And it's just at the point that my brain just can't deal with it anymore. And so because I had had that meltdown at work last year and I had experienced the sort of devastation that had on my career, I decided when I talked to my doctor and she said that she thought it would be a good idea for me to take the leave if it was an option, that it was what I needed something to do. That people tend not to feel like they should do. I knew about it because other people have used the leave option, and honestly the way that I've heard about it is from people sort of saying negative things about the other people who are doing it, which also makes it difficult to want to take the time. And mental health is something that isn't able to be seen. It's something that at the point that your mental health gets bad enough that it is visible to people, it's too late to be able to salvage sometimes friendships and jobs. And in some cases, there are people who, if they had really addressed mental health issues sooner, probably could have saved lives. And, well, definitely could have saved lives, both in situations where people are homicidal and in situations where people are suicidal. And while I don't think that that's where I would have ended up, I do think that I could have ended up losing my job. And I would rather deal with the repercussions for a while. I'm just going to take some of that peach color and go underneath the lash line. While I'm sure that it's going to be weird going back to work. I'm sure that there are some people who have a less than favorable opinion of me taking time off, especially people who don't know me and don't know my situation. But even the people who do know me, because it's something that you can't see, it's something that it's just not given the kind of attention and consideration that it would be given if it was something that was much more visible. And I think that it's unfortunate that mental health isn't something that has had more of a focus. And while it is sad that the kinds of events that have happened over the last several years have taken place that have led to some people starting to put more effort into seeing what the effects of mental health are and to understanding how important it is to do something about mental health. It's also just good that it's something that's starting to come to the forefront, and it has certainly been helpful for me to know that I am able to not be ashamed or embarrassed. I used to be incredibly embarrassed to tell people that I had depression. I'm going to use the Mally waterproof eyeliner in Midnight again, in my waterline. And now it's something that it's a part of who I am. It's not anything that is my own fault. And nobody that has depression should be blamed for their depression. That was a mistake. Okay, so a little better. I used the Urban Decay 24/7 eyeliner pencil in alkaline and just sort of tried to even both sides out. I think I'm going to put a little bit of a yellow, I'm going to go in with the mustard underneath my lash line and see if I can tie the top into the bottom a little bit better. So I just wanted to talk about this because if you are somebody who has issues with mental health, don't feel like it's something you have to be ashamed of. If other people have an issue with hearing about it or knowing about it, that's their problem and they need to deal with their own stuff. And you can't worry about how other people are going to react because it's going to hold you back from doing what you need to do to get healthy and to take care of yourself. And the point at which I really realized that and accepted it was when I was able to start being more open. And I was always kind of open about having depression, but I was also always kind of embarrassed to tell people. And now it's just something that I feel more comfortable explaining and talking about because I do talk about it and because it's not something that I am ashamed of. And I really, when I say that I don't think anyone should be ashamed of it, I really mean I don't think anybody should be ashamed of it. It's not something that you did or caused. There's not a way to wake up one day and feel better. And the physical effects that come along with depression that people don't understand. I'm going to use the Benefit Roller Lash for my mascara. Are also really difficult. I sleep anywhere from right now when things are really, really stressful. I am very easily able to sleep for 14 or 16 hours a day. And when I get up, even after sleeping for that long, I have to make myself get out of bed. I don't just wake up and feel great. And I also am so tomorrow I see my regular doctor, and I'm going to a new doctor also. My other doctor that I've been talking about is a specialist, and I have just basically used her as my general practitioner for about 15 years. So I decided it was time to see a regular doctor, and I had her essentially pick a doctor for me so that it's somebody that I know she trusts and will work with and who is going to work with her because I trust her completely. I literally trust her with my life. So having a regular doctor that I can go to other than the specialist when I have smaller things, I think will help with my mental health also, because right now when I have smaller issues, I often will just wait and hope that they resolve themselves because I don't want to bother my specialist with it. And when I have larger issues, I still tend to wait longer than I should because sometimes they're not directly related to what my specialist is there for. And I don't like seeing new doctors because there's always the explaining my medical history and going over everything that just, again, feels like it's so much sometimes. And it's not it's just not something that I feel like I need to be so worried about. And so I'm just learning to kind of be a person who is okay with having mental health that isn't okay. I'm using the Limitless blush from the Real Her palette. It's a matte blush. The other two are shiny. This one is matte. So I just hope that people who have any kind of illness, whether it's something like mental health or something that is able to physically be seen, but that maybe isn't considered necessarily societally acceptable, that those are things that people can stop being embarrassed and ashamed of, because it's the other person's problem. And I know that it's a lot easier to say that than to have to experience that or have to live with that. And not just in relation to health and medical issues, but in relation to sexuality or race or religion or anything else that people have various prejudices about, or have decided that they know what somebody else is like or what is going on with somebody else without taking the time to actually get to know them. Those things are incredibly difficult to have to experience, and it's hard to just, at the end of the day, say it's their problem and be okay with it. I have chapstick on, so 1 second while I take that off so I can do my lips. This is the Tarte lip paint in Vibin. I think this was the first matte lipstick, like higher end matte lipstick I ever bought. My favorite matte lipsticks are still the Wet n Wild, probably just, if for no other reason than because they are a really good formula and they are $5. And a lot of times you can find them for 50% off. So I like these lipsticks fine. They are a bit drying. I like this color though. Feel like I did a nice transitioning from spring into fall look. But this is my all mattes. No highlighter is a little strange. I didn't realize how used to wearing highlighter I've gotten. So anyway, my hope for this video is that if you are struggling with anything, that your takeaway be that you're not alone, and that it's whatever it is, you shouldn't feel ashamed, and you should feel comfortable talking to somebody and to talk to somebody. Because when I decided that I wasn't going to take care of myself and I wasn't going to take time off of work, ultimately it led to one of the most stressful and difficult years of my career. And taking this time, while there are certain anxieties around my career, ultimately I know that it is what will be best, and that had I done this a year ago, I would be in a much better place than I am now. And there's no question in my mind about whether or not that's the case. And even if it's not seeing a therapist, even if it's just talking to a friend or a family member, or going online and finding an internet support group, find something that you can do to help make sure that you aren't just bottling everything up. Because anytime you bottle everything up, eventually it's going to overflow. And I am somebody who's always been pretty good at holding myself together, and I have a meltdown once a day right now. So it's getting better, but it's still a pretty long road. And fortunately, I found a therapist who I think is going to be fantastic and really understands where I'm coming from and is the right person for me. And I just hope that you're able to find the right person for you if that's what you need. And if you don't need that, if you have friends that are going through things, be supportive. If you have somebody who you think might have issues, just ask them once in a while how they're doing. You don't have to ask them if they're okay. If you know that somebody has issues, asking them if they're okay isn't always the best question. Just ask them how they're doing. Just plain and simple. And if you know that somebody isn't okay, just be there. Even if you're just there to try to make them laugh and not talk about whatever they're going through, having somebody there will help them. And having somebody there would help you if you're the person going through it. So anyway, that is everything for today. This is my matte look, and I thank everybody for being here, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and bye.